Hello, GMs and DMs. Fall is here, though you wouldn't know it by the 70-degree weather outside. Thankfully, though, the nights are beginning to offer a chill in the air, and when that happens, the soups and stews come out in full force. Because of the recent release of Dragon Age Veilguard, I thought I'd give the Dragon Age cookbook a glance to see what I could cook up. After all, there's dragons in D&D and dragons in Dragon Age, so let's blend the two and see what we can come up with. Stews are perfect for a D&D session. Easy to make, and you can cook well in advance, even the previous day if you'd like. Better yet, do a potluck and see if anybody else wants to cook up a soup themselves. This way, you can try all sorts of combos during the session. Today, we're going to be making Ferelden potato and leek soup, and while that cooks, I'm going to make a quick loaf of what's called Meadow Rye Bread from the Elder Scrolls cookbook. Today's video is merging all sorts of fantasy games into one big smorgasbord. For the stew, the biggest piece of work is your prep. You'll see here I have things minced, chopped, measured out, and all ready to pop into the pot when the time is right. We have 5 ounces of bacon, which is about 8 pieces sliced up, 1 medium onion, which is minced, 1.5 to 2 pounds of potatoes cubed. Cut these however you like, just make sure that they're small enough to eat. No one wants a giant potato stuck in their mouth. 30 ounces of chicken stock with 2/3 cup of cooking wine. Yes, I enjoy mixing measurements just to keep you on your toes. 3 to 4 carrots peeled and sliced. You can also add celery or other soup vegetables if you want. I'm happy with the veggies I have here, but that's kind of the point of soups and stews. They're meant to be experimented with, so if you want more, go crazy. We also have a teaspoon of salt and pepper, a teaspoon of oregano, and a teaspoon of nutmeg. Nutmeg seems like odd a bit first, but does add a little bit of earthiness to this meal. Just different enough to keep it interesting. Finally, we have the leeks. I went with 2 large leeks here, but the recipe does call for about 18 ounces, which could be 3 to 4 large leeks. Again, if you want more, feel free to go ahead and add in more. Once our prep is all done, we're going to start with our onions, put a little bit of vegetable oil into your pot, and go ahead and start sauteing those bad boys. We want to sweat the onions, which basically means is we're getting the water out of those onions. We don't want the water. Water is the enemy in this case. Give them about 5 minutes. Once that's done, we're going to go ahead and throw our bacon in there with a little bit of authority. Again, we don't want the heat to be beyond medium here. We don't want the bacon to burn. We want to render the fat because that fat is going to be used to coat our next ingredient, which is the leeks. So we'll give the bacon about 3 to 5 minutes to cook. And then once that starts to render, once everything starts to smell good, we're going to go ahead and throw our leeks in. After we give our leeks a quick twirl and a quick spin, we're going to go ahead and add in our potatoes. And we're also going to add in our carrots. At this point, we're just adding in ingredients, giving everything a quick little twirl, a little 1-step, 2-step. And then we are going to add in our cooking wine. And the cooking wine is really just going to help free up any of the burnt pieces or the pieces of bacon that might have gotten stuck at the bottom. That's just going to add more flavor. You can see here I'm really digging in deep to get any of those brown bits and releasing them from the pot. Once that's done, we're going to add our chicken stock. I had said 30 ounces. If you need a little bit more, need a little bit less, just give it a quick eyeball. Basically, we want enough liquid in there to cover all of the ingredients. We don't want anything sticking out. And then we're just going to let it start to simmer. Once it starts to simmer, as you can see here, we're going to pop on the lid. We're going to turn down the heat a little bit and just check on things from time to time. This is within 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, you want to make sure it's just not overboiling, and that's where I add in the salt, the pepper, the oregano, and nutmeg. Once that's done, I'm going to stir it, incorporate everything, pop the lid back on, and we're going to set the timer for 15 minutes. While that's cooking, we're going to make some bread, this time from the Elder Scrolls cookbook. The recipe in the book calls for wheat and rye flour. However, I've made this a few times, and honestly, I enjoy making a tri-blend of flour. I use 1.5 cups of white flour, 1/2 cup of wheat, and 1/2 cup of rye. We also need 1/2 cup of buttermilk, and if you don't have that, you can always mix 1/2 cup of milk with a tablespoon of cream of tartar. There's also other ways that you could makeshift some buttermilk if you don't have any or can't find any at the store, which I ran into. You also need 1/2 cup of stout beer, and you can enjoy the other half while you cook this, which I also did. We will need 1/4 cup of brown sugar, a tablespoon of baking powder, and finally a teaspoon of salt. This is a super simple and quick loaf of bread to make. Since there's no yeast involved, you can generally get this bread made within an hour or so, which makes it great to pair with a soup or a stew without much prep. Before mixing, remember to set your oven at 400 degrees because once we're done here, we ain't waiting. So go ahead, mix your flour together, throw in your salt, your baking powder, throw in your brown sugar, add the stout in slowly. Try not to make a mess, unlike me. Then, as that begins to incorporate, slowly add your buttermilk in about 2 batches. All I'm doing here is mixing it and trying to get all the dry spots saturated with all of my liquids. Once I'm happy, I'm going to clean up my mess and I'm going to get ready to knead the dough out on the board. Once we're ready, we're going to sprinkle a little flour out on the board because the dough is probably still going to be a little bit sticky. If it comes out in pieces, that's okay. Our kneading will get things back together. If you watch my gnocchi video, you'll recognize my good friend, Mr. Bench Scraper. He's back, and this time he's ready to knead harder and faster than ever before. He's born to knead, he needs to knead, and I need him to knead. Scraper's going to help get any sticky parts off the board while I just flip, turn, and fold. Do this for a couple minutes until everything is mixed properly and the dough itself doesn't feel as sticky. It's okay if there's still a little bit of wetness, but generally it shouldn't be sticking to the board anymore. And then make sure you pat it on the head, telling it what a good boy it is. So once you're done kneading, all you need to do is get a baking sheet, put it right on there. Since we're celebrating the release of Dragon Age Veilguard, or I'm celebrating the release, I'm just going to do a simple V. Not really sure how this would turn out, but in the end, the result was passable. Once your oven is preheated to 400 degrees, go ahead and put it in and set the timer for 40 minutes. And here it is. Again, passable, but more importantly, there's a nice crunch from the crust of the bread, and it's plenty dense and delicious by itself, with a cheese or a spread. But tonight we're dining with our Ferelden potato and leek soup. I do want to add that this video isn't sponsored by anyone. I just enjoy the Elder Scrolls and Dragon Age whenever possible. They blend well with D&D, and more importantly, I wanted to make this recipe that was super simple, scalable, and perfect for the chillier months. Chances are I'll be doing more soups and stews since I live off them from the months of November to March. If you get a chance to make either of these, let me know how they turned out. As always, thanks for watching, and may your next session be your best.